Hello everyone, Earl Henderson, Primordial Defense. Thank you for watching. I have another Monday quarterback video for you. I'm going to play the entirety of this video, and then I'll go back and talk about things that are going on to better explain what's going on and talk about things that I think that were done right and or done wrong. Without further ado, here we go.
Good afternoon. I'm Kimberly Peterson, Chief of Police with the Freemont Police Department. I'm here to provide information regarding our officer-involved shooting, which occurred on Tuesday, February 9th, 2021. At about 4:44 p.m., Fremont Police Officer Andrew Dennis was working uniform patrol in his marked patrol vehicle. Officer Dennis was patrolling the Northport Shopping Center, which is located at 4169 Cushing Parkway, in response to reports of criminal activity from the property owners. The Northport Center also shares entrances and exits with the Goodnight Inn, which is located to the rear of the shopping center. While in the parking lot, Officer Dennis observed a gray 2003 BMW exit the parking lot at a high rate of speed. Officer Dennis followed the BMW northbound on Cushing Parkway and conducted a DMV check on the license plate. The records check revealed that the BMW was reported stolen out of Redwood City on February 5th, 2021. Officer Dennis notified dispatch that he was behind the vehicle and other patrol units were advised. Officer Dennis continued to follow the vehicle until sufficient units had responded to his location to help with the stop. Officer Dennis turned on his overhead lights and siren in an attempt to conduct an enforcement stop in the area of Stevenson Blvd and Boyce Road. The stolen BMW turned left and fled west on Stevenson Blvd at a high rate of speed. The vehicle continued until it reached a dead end, and then 4 suspects fled from the vehicle on foot and ran into an open field which is partially bordered by a series of industrial buildings and a large open parking lot.
Okay, we have a green light and we're going to light it up into the intersection now.
Yes, I'm making this car. 90.
We are westbound, Stevenson, coming to Dragonfly, number 2 lane.
10-4. Confirm you're taking off or you're going to try to stop it there?
It's looking like it's taken off.
Copy, you're going to take off.
We are terminating.
Copy, terminating at westbound Stevenson from Dragonfly.
Now the problem is he's committed to a dead end here.
10-4, what's the crossing?
No, I'm blocking in. He's going to take off with him, though. Still failed 3 times. Going northbound. 2 more. Into the field. And 1 with the...
Copy, you're taking off northbound. I didn't copy tonight.
Car's clear. Off. Chase southbound into the field.
Copy, foot chase out down into the field. 233's channel.
Officer Dennis and Officer Jeffrey Carter exited their cars and chased the suspects on foot into the field. As the 2 officers rounded a fenced corner, one of the suspects turned around and faced the officers with a firearm in his hands. The suspect began to shoot at the officers, firing the weapon multiple times. Both officers returned fire from their handguns and then immediately ran for cover. The officers broadcasted that they had been shot at with a rifle. Additional patrol officers arrived. A large perimeter was established with the assistance from the California Highway Patrol. The perimeter extended from Stevenson Blvd on the north end, south to Automobile Parkway, and then from Boyce Road west to the marshland, adjacent to the San Francisco Bay. One suspect, a 16-year-old male from East Palo Alto, was located near the fenced area and he surrendered immediately to officers. Approximately 20 minutes later, the second suspect, a 17-year-old male from Hayward, surrendered to the officers near the location of the shooting. At this point in time, officers had 2 suspects in custody and 2 remaining on foot within the perimeter that had been established. The Freemont Police SWAT team was called out, along with SWAT teams from Newark PD and Union City PD to help search for the remaining suspects, who were believed to be armed. The SWAT teams were supported by Bearcat armored vehicles designed for municipal law enforcement agencies, multiple canine teams, and drones. East Bay Regional Parks Police Department and CHP responded with aircraft. At 5:55 p.m., in the middle of the search for the 2 outstanding suspects, Fremont detectives learned that this same group of suspects had conducted a home invasion robbery at the Goodnight Inn just minutes before Officer Dennis had seen their vehicle. The victim of the home invasion robbery relayed that he had been inside his motel room with a female friend when 3 armed suspects entered his room and robbed him. The victim told officers 2 of the suspects were armed with rifles and the 3rd with a handgun. The suspects forced the victim into the bathroom and told him not to exit. Amongst the items stolen during the robbery were the victim's cell phone and vehicle keys belonging to a 2005 Chevy Cruze parked in the motel parking lot. When the victim emerged from the bathroom, the suspects, his female companion, and the vehicle were all gone. Investigators corroborated the story by locating video of the suspect vehicle, a gray 2003 BMW, before and after the home invasion in the area of the Goodnight Inn. SWAT teams continued the search for the 2 outstanding suspects for several hours after the shooting occurred. At 7:28 p.m., a CHP air unit spotted 2 persons hiding in the field behind industrial buildings. Officers surrounded their location and gave numerous commands to surrender. 1 suspect complied, while the 4th suspect continued to hide. A Fremont PD apprehension canine was eventually deployed after multiple warnings and engaged the suspect. The suspect continued to struggle after being engaged by the canine and still tried to run away. A less lethal 40mm foam impact round was deployed at the suspect, which allowed the arrest team to detain him. The final 2 suspects arrested were a 14-year-old male from East Palo Alto and a 15-year-old male from East Palo Alto as well. During a search of the suspect's flight path, officers recovered 3 firearms in the field: an AR-15 pistol with blue handguards, a Glock handgun, and a .22 caliber Mossberg 715P. No involved officers or suspects were injured by gunfire during the incident. 1 suspect sustained injuries from the canine bite. That suspect was treated at a local hospital and cleared for booking the same evening. Due to the age of the 4 male suspects and current California law, detectives were unable to interview them. All 4 suspects were ultimately booked at juvenile hall. The following day, Wednesday, February 10, 2021, license plate reader cameras alerted that the Chevy Cruze stolen during the home invasion was in the city of Fremont. An enforcement stop with assistance from marked patrol units was conducted in the area of Mission Boulevard and Dakota Road, and 4 occupants were detained, including a 16-year-old juvenile female from Hayward who was present and directly involved with the home invasion robbery at the Goodnight Inn. The victim's stolen cell phone was located inside the vehicle as well. The female was arrested and later booked into juvenile hall. The following suspects were charged as listed. Juvenile number 1, 17-year-old male, resident of Hayward, charged in juvenile court with attempted murder of 2 police officers, assault with a firearm on 2 police officers, first-degree residential robbery, and personal use of a firearm during the commission of these felonies. Juvenile number 2, a 16-year-old male resident of East Palo Alto, was charged in juvenile court with home invasion robbery and personal use of a firearm during the commission of a felony. Juvenile 3, a 15-year-old male resident of East Palo Alto, charged in juvenile court with home invasion robbery and personal use of a firearm during the commission of a felony. And juvenile number 4, 14-year-old male resident of East Palo Alto, charged in juvenile court with home invasion robbery and felony evading. Juvenile number 5, 16-year-old female resident of Hayward, charged in juvenile court with home invasion robbery and possession of stolen property. Due to the age of the suspects, no additional details to include prior criminal arrest history can be released. I'd like to recognize the bravery of these officers who are willing to confront armed suspects, nearly losing their own lives in the process. This is an example of the commitment and dedication all of our officers demonstrate every day serving to protect all of you. Because this case is linked to other crimes and will be moving on to criminal court, we must maintain the integrity of the investigation. For this reason, we will not be able to show all of our video evidence today, although eventually all of it will be publicly released on our transparency portal. Every time we make a decision on what video evidence to release publicly, we must balance several competing interests. The need to be transparent with our community, the need to maintain the integrity of the criminal investigation, the need to avoid tainting the jury pool or prosecuting the crime in the media, and the need to balance privacy protections, especially those of victims and juveniles. The Fremont Police Department would like to thank all of the agencies that assisted with this case. That includes the California Highway Patrol, Union City Police Department, Newark Police Department, San Leandro Police Department, East Bay Regional Parks Police Department, and Milpitas Police Department. The Fremont Fire Department, City of Fremont Streets Division, U.S. Department of Fish and Wildlife, and the property owners of Northport Center were also invaluable in this investigation. The Fremont Police Department will continue to update the community regarding this incident as the investigation allows.
All right, let's get into this. So, this officer was at a shopping center due to some problems going on at that shopping center. Noticed a vehicle driving high rate of speed, got behind him, checked him out, found out the car was stolen. He goes to make a stop. They refuse to stop. And this is where I start ranting and raving. So, let me play this segment one more time.
Yes, I'm making this car. 98.
We are westbound, Stevenson, coming to Dragonfly, number 2 lane.
10-4. Confirm you taking off or you're going to try to stop it there.
It's looking like it's taken off.
Okay, so you're going to take off.
We are terminating.
Okay.
All right, so this is an agency that has a no pursuit policy. No pursuit policies are sort of common with very large municipalities. I don't know where no pursuit policy started at. My first guess would be it originated somewhere in California, where, California makes things easy on criminals. But it's very common to see with large municipalities a no pursuit policy. And their reasoning behind this is chasing bad guys is dangerous to the public. In some ways, I can understand that. I can see that. In other ways, no, I don't see it. I just see it as very soft, liberal-minded people putting handcuffs on the police and making it harder for them to catch criminals. I don't know this agency's particular policies or even what California law says about it, but the fact that he self-terminated tells me that this is what he's trained to do. You go stop someone, they refuse to stop and they take off, well then you terminate. In other places, it's the supervisor responsibility to tell those officers to stop. You'll hear the officer try to initiate traffic stop, and they'll indicate that they're refusing and they're in pursuit. And then within about a minute, you may hear the supervisor come on the radio and tell them to terminate pursuit. Or they may ask some questions like, why are you stopping them? Like, what's the circumstances? And then they'll make the decision to continue or to stop. In this particular instance, the traffic did not look heavy to me at all. I think that given just a very short amount of video footage that we could see on this, that the conditions were acceptable to go ahead and pursue. Now, if they were in a residential neighborhood, and it's a Saturday and there's kids out and about, or even if it's like during the week and school buses are out and there's kids on at bus stops and stuff like that, I could maybe understand why they said terminate pursuit, or why he would initiate it himself to terminate pursuit, because it could be a little bit dangerous running through residential streets with kids out. It looks like they're in the business district somewhere. Not a lot of traffic, not a lot of cars out. I don't think that this would be a time to stop it. I think this would be an acceptable time to go ahead and continue that. But I guess you could say opinions are like assholes, all right? But he terminates.
I'll be terminating it. Westbound Stevenson from Dragonfly.
Now, the problem is he's committed to a dead end here.
Cancel. What's the cross then?
I'm blocking in. He's going to take off with him, though.
Now, this right there, I don't agree with at all. So this 307 person sounds like to me is a supervisor, and he's saying, do not block him in. If he's going to take off, let him go. That's stupid. I mean, that's not just stupid. That is fucking stupid. All right? What the hell is the point of the police driving around in police cars with bumpers, push bumpers on them, if they're not going to be allowed to do what they need to do? Okay, he's in a dead-end road. They could have very easily parked their cars across the street here, box them in. Something simple. But this guy says, don't block them in. Let them go. That's just making it too easy on the criminals, in my opinion. Totally wrong call to say that. Now, either this guy could see them bailing out on foot from the get-go, or he just said, to hell with it. He took off and went down there to do work.
Still fail 3 times. Going northbound. 2 more. Into the field. And 1 with the...
Copy. They're taking off northbound. I can copy tonight.
Car's clear. Off.
Now, going into a large field with a big gate. Now, that's a lot of ground to cover. A lot of ground to cover. And there could be more entrances like this around. Maybe, maybe not. But he just parked in front of this entrance right here. What if later on an ambulance needed to come through here and get to where they're at? I don't think it would be a good idea to park in front of an entrance like this and blocking it. Because now, if an ambulance has to come through there, they're kind of blocked. They can't get through there very easily. So, parking somewhere else, I think, would have been a better idea. Another thing is check the gate, see if it's actually fully locked or not. A lot of these cattle gates, it's just a chain wrapped around a little peg, a little hook thing, just keeping it closed. A lot of them don't have combination locks on them or anything like that. So I think that getting out and checking the gate and seeing if you can open it would be a pretty good option, especially for the second guy. But check it, see if it's open. If it's open, throw that bad boy open and then jump back in the car and take off. You can cross the field in a vehicle a lot faster than you can on foot. And then for following up units, as you have already ran all the way up here to this freaking hill, why are these guys wanting to start running from here and try and reach you all the way up there? Let them drive to you. So I think checking, one, not blocking the entrance is a good idea. And then secondly, that second or third person coming up, I think checking that gate and trying to open it would be a good option. Because like I said, a lot of these cattle gates, it's just a chain wrapped around a hook that keeps them closed. It's not like these gates normally have locks on them or anything. Now, they could, but a lot of times it's just a chain on the hook keeping it closed. Now, the area they're going into is a lot less urbanized. Lots of open field, and the topography is varying. So it's hard to tell from this aerial view, but you can tell that there are some changes in elevation throughout this. And even from the dash cam footage when they were parked over here, you could see that there's a big hill over there, and you can see that some of the terrain just goes up and down. So the use of a rifle in this type of environment is very crucial, in my opinion. So on top of not blocking that entrance and then checking the gate, recognizing this environment and the need for a rifle is pretty paramount. So dismounting and going into this kind of environment, I would say go ahead and grab that rifle, because there's long distances here. You know, they could be on a higher elevation. Officers could be at a lower elevation, especially for follow-on units. Let's say, the gunfight's happening over here. Good guys are pinned down over here in the little depression area, and bad guys are kind of over here firing around the hill or whatever. A person with that rifle, gets out to here and they got a good line of shot. You can make that good shot with this kind of distance involved and be more accurate with a rifle than you would a pistol. Maybe it's just the country part of me, but anytime I see large open fields or anything involving woods or anything like that, a rifle automatically comes to mind as the most preferred thing to take with you.
Times. Both officers returned fire from their handguns and then immediately ran for cover. The officers broadcasted that they had been shot at with a rifle. Additional patrol officers arrived. And one suspect, a 16-year-old male from East Palo Alto, was located near the fenced area, and he surrendered immediately to officers. Approximately 20 minutes later, the second suspect, a 17-year-old male from Hayward, surrendered to the officers near the location of the shooting. At this point in time, from Newark PD agencies, multiple HP responded with aircraft. At 5, detectives learned that this minutes before Officer Dennis had seen their vehicle hotel room, told officers the robbery, parked in the corroborated the search for the a CHP area. Officers surrounded their location and gave numerous guide. A Fremont PD suspect complied, while the fourth suspect continued to hide. A Fremont PD apprehension canine was eventually deployed after multiple warnings and engaged the suspect. The suspect continued to struggle after being engaged by the canine and still tried to run away. A less lethal 40mm warning to surrender.
All right, so it doesn't really give an indication about what time it is. With thermal imaging, it's difficult to tell if it's daytime or nighttime. I mean, this very well could have been daytime, and you wouldn't know because of the thermal. Now, there could be some differences in how temperature reads on certain things that would give you an idea if it's daytime versus nighttime. But just looking at this, you really have no idea if it's daytime or nighttime. But let's just assume that it is nighttime. in this type of environment, hell, any environment really, nighttime requires good low light equipment. Now, white lights on rifles and pistols, they need to have good throw and be pretty bright. Now, with pistols in this kind of environment, like I said, I don't think that pistols for this kind of environment are great. A rifle should be definitely used in this environment where there's large open spaces. And with those rifle lights, you want a rifle light that's going to have a decent amount of throw on it, where you can positively identify the target and whether or not they have a weapon. So low light lights are really important. And I have videos on other low light stuff, but you just can't skimp on your lights. Yes, I understand that one flashlight can be about the same cost of maybe a pistol or a used pistol, and that may be intimidating for some people to say, hey, do I really need to drop this much money in a flashlight? And my answer is absolutely, you do need to drop that much money into a light, and drop that money into it and put it on that gun, because that is a piece of life safety equipment. It's not only going to help to keep you and your team alive, but it's also going to help keep you and your team from losing any type of litigation. If you can't see the object in their hand very well and you pump a couple rifle rounds into them and then find out that, they didn't have a gun in their hand, they just had a cell phone, things could not play out well for you. So flashlights are extremely important. Now, the second thing for low light and also this type of environment, night vision. All right. So having a night vision binocular or binoculars, dual tubes, whatever, would be an important thing for this type of environment if it's low light or no light. If he's hiding, if they were hiding in between these cars over here, they didn't have a helicopter. A lot of places don't have helicopters. It's just really rich areas that have helicopters. But let's say there was no helicopter in play here, and one of these dudes was hiding in and around a car. Well, and all these dudes had was, of course, their rifles and their flashlights. If, someone's walking along here and they're shining that flashlight, the bad guy who's over here knows exactly where the good guy's at and can then manipulate, in a sense, based off that light source. They see the light click on, they know to stay down and hug the ground, stay in the foliage, whatever. They know that where to shoot at. They know where the light is looking. So if the light beam is shining down towards this way, they know not to move. But when they see the light beam shine over here, they know they can start creeping along and get further down over here. And then when that light beam swings back across, they know to stop and stay still and stay hidden. And then when the light beam goes this way, they know they can keep moving. So you can use light to your advantage, because you know what that person can see and what they cannot see. And when it comes to night vision, obviously they're not going to know what you can or cannot see, because you are using a light amplification device. And if you have an infrared light source, you're beaming that infrared light source away. Their little naked human eyes are not going to see that, so they have no idea where you're looking or where you're not looking. And if they're making that movement thinking that you're not looking in that direction, and you pop your head up and start moving along, well, you're going to get caught when that person's looking that way through the night vision. So night vision, I think, is a very useful tool, especially in environments like this where there's very little to no light, and it gives you so much more of an advantage over the adversary. However, those things are also expensive. Now, agencies can get night vision through DRMO. There's other programs, they can get, certainly writing grants and stuff for them. But just the basic PVS 14 to get in the game, those costs have come down. An agency can afford those a little bit better than they could a dual tube set. But it's still an expensive thing to get into. But it's something that is pretty useful for environments like this. If this environment was nighttime, and then the ability to shoot at night. So not only do you have your night vision goggle on, but your rifle, if it's equipped with an infrared laser, well, if it was nighttime and this dude was over here with his little AR pistol or whatever, and he was aiming towards this way where there's a group of officers, and there's an officer over here with night vision, he could see that person, illuminate them with the infrared laser, and this guy would have no idea that anyone is aiming a rifle at them, or even recognize the fact that he has an infrared laser square on his chest. He would never, ever know unless he himself had a night vision goggle on. And so the ability to target in the complete darkness without anyone knowing about it, and then fire a shot from concealment, or even standing in the open and just using the darkness as concealment, that's a game changer, right? I mean, that's why our U.S. military is so badass, because they can fight at night when so many other people cannot. Thermal scopes, those are expensive too, but they are also game changers. So a thermal scope, you would see basically what you're seeing here. This type of setting that's turned on, it's white hot, so anything that's warm or hot has more of a white color scale to it. And then you can also get it reversed, where black, anything hot, it's more of a black color scale that shows hot things. But it would be very easy, just as you can see in this aerial shot, to search wide open areas with a thermal scope. Very, very, very easy to see things with thermal, and it's even bigger of a game changer, but they're also more expensive. But just getting into it, beyond white light, night vision is a very good tool. And just the regular standard PVS 14s, those prices have dropped a whole lot. They're still pretty manageable in price to be able to acquire. And not just from an agency standpoint, but even from an individual standpoint. So, officers don't make a whole lot in most areas, but the PVS 14s, the price drops that have occurred within the last several years, just regular everyday people can afford these things. So there's really no reason why, some individual officers out there just can't afford this kind of stuff on their own. But anyway, moving on. So this is something that when I see things like this, I normally just associate it with California. Now, obviously, other places utilize these things, but with all the videos out there, it's also something that I just associate with California, because that's where I see it the most. LAPD, they paint their stuff green, but obviously, you can get it in other, less lethal colors, yellow, orange, whatever. And I think these are kind of neat little tools, but the downside to them, in my opinion, is the load capacity. So as you can see here on the gun itself, 3 cartridges. Once you fire those 3 cartridges, it's done. I mean, you're just carrying around a pretty expensive tube. There are some 40mm bandoliers out there that I think would be a good addition to something like this, so you can carry more rounds. But just 3 rounds on the gun, not the biggest fan of that. And I've seen in multiple videos where people get shot with these things and it doesn't affect them. But I've also seen multiple videos where people get shot with a beanbag from a 12 gauge and it doesn't really affect them. Just the same as you see multiple videos of people being shot with a taser and it doesn't affect them. So it's not a true end-all be-all kind of solution for less lethal. Yes, they can work in most cases, and then they can also not work in some cases. And for those cases where they're not going to work, it really sucks when you're limited to just carrying around 3 shells. So I think that a system of having more shells readily available, whether the sling style design with the bandolier built into it to carry the rounds is used, or a standalone bandolier that's kind of like a kit. You got the bandolier that you can put on and then grab the gun. Something better than just carrying around 3 of these shells.
Deployed at the suspect. 14 during an AR-15 pistol with blue handguards, a Glock handgun, and a .22 caliber Mossberg 715P.
All right. So I've kind of talked about this before with AR pistols and AK pistols. The street thugs, they love these things. And they more or less love them because of their false gods, the people that they idolize. They're rap stars. You see these in rap videos a lot. And so in return, you see people in the street wanting these things a lot. Back in the day, back in the 90s, these type of weapons were not very prevalent. You didn't see videos or rap videos of someone holding an AR-15. It just wasn't common. What you saw in the 90s was people holding Glock pistols. And you would hear people on the street reference, Glock. Yeah, I got that Glock, bro. You wouldn't hear them talk about other guns. I got the HK-USP. Don't know what the hell an HK-USP is, but they know what a Glock is. And the only reason they know what a Glock is because their favorite rapper talked about it. You wouldn't hear them talk about 1911 Colt. Yeah, bro, I got that Colt 1911. One, it's a little bit harder to say. But you would never hear them say it because the rap stars talked about Glock or Colt 1911s. It was always Glocks, right? And so all the criminals, they talked about wanting to have a Glock. Even when they had a pistol and it wasn't a Glock, there were some that were so stupid they would say they had a Glock. Fast forward, and now you see these things in rap videos. And these are obviously now more popular with the street crowd. It has nothing to do with the fact that they're rifle cartridge pistols or that they're compact or anything like that. It's the fact that these are in rap videos, and they're going to follow what their false god does. All right, lots of people will imitate others. Fire departments, police departments, they all imitate larger agencies, right? Police departments will mostly always imitate or follow what the FBI does. And this has been going on for years, ever since the FBI Miami shootout back in the 80s between the FBI and a couple bank robbers. FBI went to 10mm and 40 Smith & Wesson. A lot of smaller police agencies went to 10mm and then 40 Smith & Wesson. They kind of follow what the FBI does. They even follow what the FBI does when it comes to applications for employment. Of course, the FBI is more than just law enforcement. The FBI is also an intelligence agency, so their application for employment is pretty darn in depth. You got to list all these addresses that you lived at for the last 10 years. You got to name your most immediate neighbors that live around you and get their names, credit background check, all this stuff. And the FBI does that because, like I said, they're an intelligence agency. And local law enforcement agencies, they just kind of do what the FBI does. And, why does local law enforcement need to go do a credit check the same as what the FBI does? Well, they don't. They really don't need to do that. In the fire departments, your smaller volunteer fire departments will kind of look up to the bigger paid fire departments and will kind of imitate what they do. So it's not uncommon, or it's not out of the ordinary to see the street people do the same thing when it comes to their rap stars. Now, the unintended consequence of them idolizing what these other people are carrying is they are now having rifle cartridge weapons that are pretty concealable. Now, these street thugs, they don't understand shit about ballistics. All right, they don't know that this certain grain bullet with this length barrel and this twist rate at this distance performs this way. Like, that shit is beyond them. All right, they don't understand that. A lot of them just they also fascinate towards green tip, and in a way, your street thugs are kind of like some of your basic, like, new beginning gun people. They just don't know shit, right? They think the green tip is like this end all be all 5.56 round that I got green tip, bro. Green tip, bro. All right, green tip isn't all that great. Like, calm down. So, they don't know. They don't understand, basic stuff, and they just see something that their favorite rapper is using in their rap video, and this thing looks kind of cool. But what they're getting when they use these things is a rifle cartridge, and a rifle cartridge will go through body armor like warm knife through warm butter. All right, one of these 5.56, or this could even be a 2.23 for all I know. Whatever. This bullet will very easily go through the type of armor that the majority of the police in this country wear. Go right through the front panel and go right through the back panel, no problem whatsoever. And it's pretty compact, all right? I mean, it's pretty easy to conceal. You can, wintertime, you got a jacket. I mean, you can put this under your jacket, no problem. And, bulky enough, no one's really going to notice it. It's a whole lot more friendlier than a full-length battle rifle, right? So, a couple things that I foresee in the future with so many criminals gravitating towards these things. One, we're going to see a paradigm shift in how law enforcement utilizes body armor. And then the second thing that I see in the future is more gun control to address these things. So I'll start with the body armor. So this, like I said, these will go through body armor very easily. Now, the most common body armor used in law enforcement today is level 3A. That is kind of, I don't know, I guess you could say the gold standard of soft body armor. And when it comes to body armor, police either wear the body armor under their uniform shirt, a concealed vest, or what you see a lot of agencies now doing is they use their outer vest carriers. It's the same armor panel, level 3A, but instead of it being in a slick concealed carrier, it's now on the outside in a more tactical looking carrier, or it can have a uniform appearance, but whatever the appearance of the carrier is, the stuff on the inside is still the same, right? And it's mostly level 3A, level 3. What does level 3, 3A, 3, level 2, level 2A, what all does that mean? Well, that's an NIJ standard. And the vests that police wear are designed to stop pistol caliber rounds. A level 3A vest, which is one of the most higher rated soft armor vests, will stop pretty much all handgun rounds. 9mm, 40, 45, 357, 44 Magnum. Like, it's going to stop all those. It can even stop pellets from a shotgun. Your level 2 vest can stop most handgun rounds, 9mm, 40, 45. And these are the most common threats that are found on the street. So, when body armor became more of a common thing for law enforcement back in the 80s, people were carrying revolvers and handguns more often. Or they would have a shotgun. Of course, AR-15s and AKs and SKSs and stuff like that were still available back then. You just didn't see street criminals really utilizing them a whole lot. And my belief in that is because the general population just wasn't utilizing them a whole lot. Therefore, there wasn't a whole lot of them out there to be stolen. When AR-15s became more popular and people started realizing, hey, I don't have to have a special license to own this rifle, you start seeing the popularity of this rifle increase. And whereas in the 80s, I don't know what the numbers are, back in the 80s, X amount of people owned AR-15 rifles. And then, now it's 2021, X amount of people own AR-15 style rifles. And although I don't know what the exact numbers are, obviously in the 80s is a lot lower, right? It's a lot lower than what it is in 2021. And so when you have a lot lower of something, there's a lot less chances of those things being stolen. And a lot of these guns used in crimes are stolen guns. A lot of criminals, persistent felony offenders cannot go into a gun store and buy a damn gun, right? Where are they getting them? They're stealing them. But anyway, that's kind of another rant of mine in other videos talking about securing guns. But the most common threat that law enforcement has traditionally encountered was pistol caliber weapons, starting with revolvers, because back in the 80s, revolvers were still pretty popular. Even into some of the early 90s, they were still kind of somewhat popular, but you start to see more semi-automatics become popular. But regardless of what it is, it's all pistol caliber ammunition. That's the most common threat. So why would police officers need to carry heavy armor to stop rifle rounds when most of the time the people they're encountering are just carrying little piece of shit high point pistols or little 25 ACP Jennings, right? Like, why carry all that extra weight and all that extra stuff when that's 1,000 times overkill on the most common threat that's going to be encountered? Now that these AR pistols and AK pistols are gaining popularity with the criminals, and their ability to penetrate soft armor very easily, I see that in the next 10 years, we're going to see a change in how agencies put armor on their officers. We know that 3A vests alone cannot stop a rifle. It'll go through it super easy. So, what are the solutions? Well, it's going to depend on the agency and how they want their officers to look in a uniform, and then costs. So, for agencies that want that traditional uniform look with the little, metal badge and the little whistle lanyard on the epaulette of the shirt, and the little metal name tag, and the little tie and everything, a concealed vest is what they're going to be wanting. And when you try to put a rifle plate in a concealed vest, it becomes very noticeable. Even wearing just regular soft armor in a standard uniform, you can still see the damn thing under the shirt. Like, when you start adding a rifle plate into that, that's going to make it very noticeable. So those agencies are going to have a little difficulty in making their officers look the way they want them to with big ass rifle plates in their vests. For the agencies with outer vests, it's not going to be an issue for them because the bulk look is already there. Now, the style of plates and then the cost of them. So at the very low end of the cost is steel plates. However, steel plates are not optimal in my opinion. Yes, the steel plates will stop rifle rounds, but they're very heavy, and the chance for spall is a lot higher with steel plate. Even though these companies that make steel plates with the truck bed liner coating over them, that stuff can still break apart, and the metal fragments of the round can still splinter upwards or whatever into your neck. So, not a big fan of steel plates, but my worry is these small agencies that don't have a whole lot of money, they're going to be like, oh, well, this steel plate costs a lot less than this poly plate. Let's buy these. That's going to suck for those people who have to wear that shit. Next up from steel plates are ceramic plates. And ceramic plates are something that our military has been using for quite some time. Ceramic plates are good. They're multi-hit. The problem with them is taking care of them. Hitting them too hard, stuff like that can crack a plate. And so, and then there's the weight issue. They're not as heavy as steel, but they're a little bit lighter, but they're still heavy. The issue with those, like I said, is taking care of them. And so officers, get knocked down on the ground in a fight or, whatever. There's a chance of a plate being cracked. And if it's cracked, it's not going to be performing the way it should. Up from that are poly plates. And I might get this terminology wrong. I want to say polyurethane, but I don't think that's the correct poly word for it. These are very, very lightweight plates. They can stop rifle rounds. They can be multi-hit. And I see those as being the better option for being used in vests because they're extremely lightweight. And when it comes to weight, that is an important aspect. If you wear ceramic plates for 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day, four times a week for years, that's going to take a toll on you. Just even wearing a simple duty belt for years, all the weight that's on it can cause some problems for some people. Now, when you add a ceramic plate into the mix, and those heavy ass things are being worn for years, that's going to cause some physical problems for people. So the poly plates, in my opinion, are what will, if it's going to be plates, that's what will dominate the law enforcement market, at least with agencies with bigger budgets. You'll have some of these smaller agencies that can afford them very well, just like you have smaller agencies right now who cannot afford soft armor. You'd be amazed about how many agencies out there that can't afford shit and how many individual officers have to buy their own stuff. A good friend of mine, he started at a very small agency, and that small agency didn't have a bulletproof vest to give him. He had to borrow a bulletproof vest from a friend of his who owned a security company. Like, how crazy is that? So the agencies with budgets and everything, they're going to be able to afford the poly plates. Now, with that being said, there will be two different ways of how they approach this. Do agencies just go with vests or carriers that hold just those plates, and that's it? That's all they get is the rifle protection? Or do they go with a vest or carrier that has soft armor in it as well? So I think you'll see some places that go either one. You'll see some places that just use the rifle plates alone. And actually, even today, right now, there are a couple agencies like that that I've seen that rock just a plate carrier, and all they got is plates in them, and it's just regular patrol people riding around. So that's one way that some agencies could start doing it. And then the second way is they use a carrier that has soft armor in it, and they drop a plate into it that is rifle rated. Those are standalone plate options. Now, when it's a in conjunction with type of plate design, I could also see some agencies adopting that as well if they're going to be using carriers that have soft armor in them. And an in conjunction with plate is a rifle plate that if you take it out of the vest and just put it by itself and shoot it with a rifle, it's going to go right through. But if you put it with the soft armor vest, stick it in that pouch, then the rifle hits the plate and then goes into the soft armor and should stop it. I see that being one option for those agencies that want to keep the soft armor. And then I also would foresee armor companies making newer designs in armor. So right now, at time of recording, September of 2021, there is a company called Safe Life Defense, and they have a soft armor vest that is capable of stopping rifle rounds. They call it the FRAS, the FRAS, Flexible Rifle Armor System. This vest has little ceramic tiles inside of it, and they're all kind of like woven together, and it sort of reminds me of the early 2000s dragon skin armor. Kind of makes me think of that, if you know what that is, and you can put that mental image in your head. But these Safe Life FRAS vests have ceramic tiles inside of them, and they're woven together so that the vest, the panel, can be flexible. So a rifle plate is hard and rigid. Think of something like a textbook from school, something like a big history textbook. It's just a big, thick, hard object, and that's a rifle plate, right? Soft armor is really thick garment that can kind of wrap around you. And so when you take this soft armor that can kind of wrap around you and bend a little bit, and it's rifle rated, well, hell, that's the cat's meow right there. You get full wraparound rifle protection, and it's not rigid like a freaking textbook. So it's a little bit more concealable. So to my knowledge, right now, only Safe Life Defense makes that kind of product. But going forward, I foresee other armor companies making armor like that. And I can see agencies in the future adopting that style of vest. Because it's just like the vest they're wearing right now, the level 3A vest. It's nice and flexible, wraps around them. You can use it under a uniform shirt and have a concealed vest and keep that traditional uniform look. Or you put the panels in an outer carrier and work that way. Those are some of the things I see as options going forward in the next decade. Whichever way it goes, I still believe that in the next decade, we're going to see a paradigm shift in how law enforcement armors up their police officers. We're going to see a change from just wearing only level 3A vests to including rifle protection, whether that's standalone plates, in conjunction plates, or the flexible rifle armor type of design. We're going to see some kind of change in the next 10 years based off the fact that so many criminals are now seeing this as the next cool thing, the hot trend. Whereas, it used to be it was the Glock, I got that Glock, bruh. Now it's the AR pistol, AK pistol, the choppas. So that's prediction number one. Prediction number two is gun control. And I hate gun. I can't talk. I hate gun control. I see that most of the gun control laws only hurt law-abiding citizens. They don't do anything to stop the criminals from using them. These were all juveniles in this case, and they all had these weapons on them, and it was against the law for them as juveniles to have these damn things, right? The laws I think we need to focus on when it comes to guns and deterring crimes or dealing with crime is if you use a firearm in the commission of a crime, then that should be a sentence enhancer. If you steal a purse from a woman with just your bare hands, that's one thing. But if you pull a gun on a woman and take her purse, then that's another thing. And that other thing should carry a higher sentence. Even though they all they did was steal the purse from the woman, the fact they used the gun and put that woman's life at risk, or doesn't have to be a woman with a purse, it could be any other scenario. The forceful taking of the purse with just bare hands versus with a gun, those should be treated differently, in my opinion. If you use a gun in those kind of crimes, then you should double the consequences. Not say, oh, well, we should just make guns illegal, because obviously that shit doesn't work, right? Fucking meth is illegal. How many meth heads we got running around? A fuck ton. So, but with that being said, the way stupid liberals are, I unfortunately foresee some gun control laws coming to effect that basically take out the loophole for short barrel rifles. And let's just be honest, I'm as pro-gun as they come. I even believe that certain felons should be able to own guns. But I'm going to call it like it is. AR pistols and AK pistols are just a fucking loophole for having a short-barreled rifle. It is what it is. Do I believe that there should be laws against short-barreled rifles? Hell no. I think the NFA Act should be done away with. Screw it. Get rid of it. Hell, I even think the ATF should be done away with. Get rid of them. But unfortunately, not many people share those same views, and there's just way too many people who share anti-gun views, and I foresee AR pistols and AK pistols becoming regulated or being adopted somehow under NFA. However that process goes, I foresee things like this becoming harder to find. because you're going to see more of these things used in crimes against police. And typically when the police are being hammered with things, that's when lawmakers get contacted and are pressured into introducing legislation to combat things. And this is one of the things that I see being hit on. Moving on. All right, so last thing is talking about juveniles. Every state is pretty much the same when it comes to their juvenile laws and how they deal with juveniles. Juvenile stuff is shrouded in secrecy. The courts treat matters involving juveniles like it's the fucking CIA, like it's some top secret level shit that you need to have a TS clearance for. And it should not be that way. Especially for a 17-year-old male who's involved doing this kind of shit. Like, there's no reason why a 17-year-old male who was involved in the attempted murder of 2 police officers should have their name withheld from the public. No fucking reason. But because he's technically a juvenile, then he is protected by those juvenile laws, and no one's ever going to know his name. And it's going to be all secret. And because it's all secret, the court stuff is all secret, and the general public doesn't get to see what goes on. The general public never knows if this person is given a juvenile level plea deal. So when it comes to courts, juveniles are treated way, way, way different than adults. And in some cases, that's good. They should be. They should be treated way different than adults, especially like a little 12-year-old who is just completely stupid and doesn't know any better. Or maybe does know a little bit better, but is still just a stupid 12-year-old kid. When it comes to a 17-year-old, no. Not at all. I don't believe for a second that a 17-year-old male should be privileged with the same juvenile secrecy that a 12-year-old gets to enjoy, especially when it comes to them almost killing 2 cops. But there is no difference in juvenile courts when it comes to that. Juvenile is a juvenile, whether you're 5 years old, you're 10 years old, you're 12 years old, or you're 17 years and 364 days old. It's all the same. And you never get to know what happens in the juvenile courts because it's all secret. News reporters cannot go into the juvenile courtroom and report on things. Any other thing in court, you pretty much can. With the exception of like family court and things like probate. Or I'm sorry, not probate. I forget what it's called. Basically, where it's where they rule on whether or not a person should have, like in cases of dementia, where a person gets dementia, and then the court must make a ruling on whether or not that person gets to retain their rights to be able to do things on their own, or to have their rights transferred under the care of another person. So things like those things, regular people can't go into and just kind of watch and see what goes on. But almost anything else, you can go into a courtroom and you can watch a trial for a DUI case. You can go watch a trial for a murder case. You can even go to the little hearings before it becomes a trial. You can go on Monday morning down to your courthouse and sit in the courtroom to listen to all the cases that happened over the weekend. but you can't go sit in juvenile court. They keep the doors closed. They won't even let you in. And juveniles are treated way different than adults. So, and I don't know in particular how California works, but in Kentucky, I can tell you that when a juvenile is caught for something by the police, and I'll use burglary, for example. Let's say a juvenile was caught breaking into people's houses and stealing stuff. Police catch them. The police have to call what's known as a CDW, a court-designated worker. And that CDW works in the courthouse under the Department of Public Advocacy, the same department that manages your public defenders. The police have to call that CDW and inform them of what's going on, and that CDW makes the decision on whether or not that juvenile is arrested and taken to detention, or if they are given a citation and released to their parents. There is no adult equivalent to that, but if there was an adult equivalent to that, same scenario, the police catch an adult male committing a burglary. The equivalent to that would be they have to call the public defender's office and ask for permission to put them in jail. That's fucking stupid. That's crazy. When it comes to juveniles being tried for certain things, the juvenile courts will generally take a pretrial diversion approach on almost everything. And the pretrial diversion stuff is cakewalk. I mean, it's basically a slap in the wrist for a lot of things. You know, juvenile gets caught shoplifting, stealing, even burglary. Juvenile can be caught for burglary and never go to a detention center. They will get a citation and it be expected to show up to court, and then they get to court and they'll say, all right, well, we're going to put you on an ankle monitor for X amount of time. And then you're going to come off that ankle monitor and you got to be crime free for this amount of time. And if you're crime free for this amount of time, then it's pretrial diverted. It goes away. It can even be that kind of stuff can even be done for selling drugs in the school. You know, a juvenile could get their dad's bottle of Xanax or their mom's bottle of Xanax, whatever, and take it to school and start selling pills. The police catch them. They call it a CDW, and the CDW says, nah, just cite them and release them to their parents. Well, that juvenile will show up to court, and they'll do a pretrial diversion on them, tell them they got to, you know, do this, do that, and as long as they follow the conditions of the court, they'll be okay. And it varies from county to county. Each county does something a little bit different. Pretty much in the state of Kentucky, for a juvenile to be locked up, either A, the officer just calls the judge directly and just avoids the CDW altogether, which I'm a big fan of. They call that judge directly and the judge does what they need to do. Or it's something involving firearms and violence. Basically, a juvenile being a danger to themselves or others is pretty much how they're going to get locked up. So, you know, if it's a juvenile, a 17-year-old male in possession of a stolen handgun, or even a handgun that's not stolen, and you know they were involved in some kind of fight or something like that, they might get detained. If it's and it even on some of that stuff, it can kind of vary on how long they're even in there, and that really, like I said, depends on the county. So your smaller counties with more conservative judges and stuff like that, You can see those juveniles being locked up a little bit longer than juveniles from larger cities with a little bit more liberal-minded judges and court staff. So there's a lot of inconsistencies in the juvenile system, just like there are with adult, but no one ever gets to know that kind of stuff in regards to juveniles because it's all secret. None of this stuff gets out in public. And it should be in public. At least if not releasing names of some of them, then at least the circumstances involved. You know, there was an incident not long ago. A 12-year-old boy somewhere in Kentucky raped his sister, and the CDW for that county tried to avoid putting that 12-year-old boy in a juvenile detention center. They tried to do something like put him in a behavioral health kind of facility. When that juvenile had to go to a juvenile detention center, they did not stay very long. Not even a whole week. I think just a few days. That that is not uncommon. There was another incident somewhere in Kentucky where a juvenile was in a vehicle, refused to stop for the police. The police chased them and they wrecked. And that juvenile did not go to a juvenile detention center. Instead, they were cited and released to parents. There have been juveniles who were caught for some serious things. For example, shooting at people and trying to kill them. And of course, they went to a juvenile detention center. And then once they were committed, they went to a camp or a youth development center. And they call it a camp because it's pretty much like a summer camp. It's out in the middle of nowhere, out in the country. And they do some stuff outdoors like mowing grass and feeding cows and picking up sticks and raking leaves. Little piddly shit like that. But there's been juveniles who have shot at people and tried to kill them, and they go to a camp and they do their time, and then they get out and they go back to their community. When if it was an adult, it would have been a way different approach. The adult would have been locked up for an extended, longer period of time. And the place they were at would be a lot different. So these camps that are operated by the state of Kentucky, they're called youth development centers. And there's no fences around them. If there is, then the gates are left open. But there's no barbed wire fence, so to speak. There's nothing containing them in. They could very easily just walk away and leave. And some of them do, but nothing keeping them there. And in the adult world, that would never happen. You would never see an adult male taken to some facility that doesn't have a fucking fence around it for a charge of attempted murder or even murder and be allowed to walk around outside with no shackles on. Like, that would never happen. Like I don't even think it would happen in a place like New York or California where they're super liberal. these juveniles, when they are in these juvenile facilities, they are regarded as though they are little small children, like little 5-year-olds. They're not treated in any way like they're adults. So when it comes to these type of inconsistencies, so to speak, and these practices for juveniles, I think it ends up creating more problems. When you take a juvenile who has attempted to kill people, like shot at them, shoot at a juvenile shooting at a man holding a baby, and all they get is about 8 months in a youth development center at a camp, and then they can go back to their community, that's a problem. A huge, huge problem. Or let's say you take a juvenile who gets pissed off at his sister because his sister turned the Wi-Fi off, and then he stabs her to death with a knife and then fully decapitates her. Spends time in juvenile detention, then goes to a youth development center where there's no fucking fence around the place. Little son of a bitch could walk away at any moment. Goes there, does that, and then gets to go home after they've turned 18 and a half. Get to go home and, oddly enough, go live with mommy and daddy. I cannot think of any examples where that occurs in the adult criminal justice world. Like, it's unheard of. It just doesn't happen. But the general public never gets to know this shit because everything relating to juveniles is regarded as if it's top secret information with the CIA. Like, nothing is released. That's a problem. And when it comes to these little gangbangers, these little 17-year-old gangbangers, 15, 14 years old, they're not the same as an 8-year-old. All right. If an 8-year-old commits some kind of crime, there are some circumstances involved that, they should be treated different. But a 16-year-old in the heart of Louisville, gangbanging, no. There's no reason why they should be treated the same as some 8-year-old from some small county who did something stupid. But you're going to find varying levels of opinions when it comes to this. I personally think that there's so many people who look at the 15-year-olds and think of them as like their own 15-year-old or like their friend's 15-year-old, and they're not. They may, in a photograph, look like your 15-year-old. They may look like your friend's 15-year-old, but they are anything but like your 15-year-old or your friend's 15-year-old. They've been living a life that is completely different, and they've been doing things in their life that your 15-year-old has not done or your friend's 15-year-old has not done. Some of these gangbangers from these big cities like Louisville, they're living in the streets. They're out stealing cars. They're out dealing drugs. They're shooting at people. They're shooting people. Doing the same stuff that their 18-year-old counterparts are doing, that their 22-year-old counterparts are doing. The only difference with them is how many times they've been around the sun. If you've only been around the sun 16 times, well, you get treated different than the one who's been around the sun 18 times. That is part of the problem with the explosive crime here in the U.S., in my opinion, is a lack of good juvenile justice. I can't speak for every state, but in Kentucky, I firmly believe that the reason why there is so much violence in Louisville, Kentucky, so many shootings in Louisville, Kentucky, is how the courts deal with the criminals, both adult and juvenile, particularly with juvenile. They never learn a lesson as a juvenile. It's literally a slap on the wrist, even for serious shit like shooting at people. It's just a slap on the wrist. And they never learn a lesson. And then when they become adults, they still even have some of these liberal-minded judges who kind of slap them on the wrist. And the only difference is because of their status as an adult means that they are handled in court a little bit different. And they might see some longer sentences or something like that. If you're from Kentucky, you're going to know what I mean by the violence in Louisville. Like, it is super violent in Louisville. Like, shootings every damn week up in Louisville. I mean, it's almost on par to being like Chicago, almost. Now, granted, Chicago has more shootings in a week than Louisville does, but as far as the frequency, I guess, of shootings, every week, I mean, it's high. I mean, it is super high. It's almost like a shooting, if not every day, then every other day in Louisville. I mean, it is absurd up there. Not too long ago, within the last week or so, some kids at a bus stop were shot at in a drive-by shooting. like that's some crazy shit. And the reason why those criminals felt so comfortable rolling up on a bus stop and shooting at a bunch of kids is because they don't fear the criminal justice system. They don't give a shit about the criminal justice system. If we handled shit differently, they'd be a lot more afraid to pull that kind of stuff. I feel like I'm going into a pretty long rant here, but I think I've hit the things I want to talk about. Talked about the pursuit policies and how goofy they are. Getting rifles out for terrain like this. Low light. Low light applications. Less lethal. Talk about the guns and then the juveniles. Yeah, so I talked about everything I want to talk about. So if you like what you hear and see, go ahead and give me a like and a share. If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more Monday quarterback videos. Earl Henderson, Primordial Defense, thank you for watching.